recognize the ranking member for 5 minutes of question. Oh, I'm taking your pardon. Who am I going to recognize? Oh, I see. Mr. Nadler is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Vaughn says he wasn't acting violently. He was acting peacefully. Quote, sitting in abortion providers' doors, unquote. In other words, blocking access. In other words, violating the FACE Act, which is the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. He was convicted of a crime by a jury of his peers because of that. He also said, or some of the witnesses said, abortion laws have been returned to the states, and so should enforcement. Abortion laws have been returned to the states, but enforcement in those states where abortion is still legal is a federal responsibility. Professor Waters, has any federal court post-Dobbs considered the question of whether the FACE Act is constitutional? And if so, what did the court hold?
Thank you for the question. It's important to point out that every federal court pre-Dobbs that has considered the constitutionality of the FACE Act, whether it is a First Amendment challenge or a Commerce Clause challenge, has held that the FACE Act is constitutional. To my knowledge, there is one court that post-Dobbs has directly addressed the question of whether the FACE Act is constitutional, and that was actually in Mr. Vaughn's case. So the district court, the federal district court, in that case, on a motion to dismiss, held very squarely that in accordance with the prior precedent from many circuits, the FACE Act was constitutional and found that it was a valid exercise of Congress's Commerce Clause authority and also did not pose First Amendment.
Thank you. How would you describe the effect that state abortion bans have had on interstate commerce, such as on the transit of persons across state lines?
Yeah, it's somewhat ironic. You know, when we think about a post-Dobbs world, what that has created is more interstate commerce. We know that in 13 states, abortion is almost completely unavailable. And we know that that means that a person, a woman who is seeking abortion care now needs to travel. We know that the rates of people traveling to receive abortion care have risen dramatically. 1 in 5 patients who seek abortion care now have to travel across state lines. That does not, what that does is increase expenses for that woman. She has to take more time off from work, she has to be away from her family, she has to pay the travel expenses that it takes to cross state lines, and that pushes pregnancies later, right? So the impact, ironically, in a post-Dobbs world is more impact on interstate commerce.
Thank you. In 1993, during testimony before this committee, the field director of the anti-abortion group Operation Rescue, when asked whether the purpose of violent and threatening activity by some anti-abortion activists was to deny women access to abortion services, testified, and I quote, "We may not get laws changed or be able to change people's minds, but if there's no one willing to conduct abortions, there are no abortions. If there is no one willing to conduct abortions." Are you concerned that today's evident joint effort by congressional Republicans and anti-abortion extremists to repeal the FACE Act or to have it declared unconstitutional is another step in a campaign to intimidate abortion providers in states where the right to an abortion remains protected?
I am concerned. I appreciate the statements of multiple members that they don't condone violence, and I'm sure that is true. Unfortunately, there are people out there who will engage in violent activity, and the statement you just read is a prime example of it. I do think that what we are operating in now is a climate of fear. Medical professionals fear liability. They fear being able to do their jobs up to existing standards of medical care. And without protections like those provided in FACE, they fear for their own safety and they fear going to work. So I do agree that we are in a climate of fear and uncertainty, and I think that is deliberate, and I think reversing the protections that we have will only add to that.
In other words, repealing the FACE Act would add to violence.
It is very possible that it would.
Thank you. I yield back.